The junglist saw no sunshine in the Sunshine City, there was no mercy shown to the league leaders on their return, and the police came under heavy fire out in St. Andrew. But we start one place and one place only, and that's at Stadium East, where the drama and intensity couldn't be any more fuller. This is Match Week 10 Review Show. Yeah, people, welcome back to JPL Fan. And no, this isn't a dream, we finally have JPL action back again. And as promised, we head to Stadium East, where it was 5th place Waterhouse taking on 6th place Tivoli Gardens. First, let's begin with the Tivoli starting 11. Nicholas Clark was the man with the gloves, Danville Watson was handed a rare start, and their talisman number 10 Nicalia Fuller will be the main threat in the attack. As for Firehouse Nation, Elvis Wilson should once again be fully fit, so he gets a start. Number 5 Alexander Bicknell is once again the number 6 in midfield, and Colorado Murray gets the nod in the attack over Javier Bryan. Now, when the game started, things were cagey and a bit sloppy. Kingston had saw some showers throughout the day, and thus the surface at Stadium East was a bit muddy and slippery, which contributed to numerous turnovers in the opening moments. So both teams had difficulties in their build-up play, but in the 9th minute, Nicalia Fuller decided to go at Waterhouse alone and had a decent run towards goal. That woke up Waterhouse as they finally started to settle down on the ball and found their rhythm. But they had to wait until a few minutes later to produce their own decent chance at goal from the corner kick, but it went over safely. They remained in control after that and went on to have an even bigger chance at goal, this time from a set piece, but Barton Price was the hero to make a goal line clearance, but Firehouse inching closer. So Tivoli needed something at the other end to wrestle back control, and my oh my, was it something special. Nicalia Fuller is well known around the league as a dead ball specialist, but it remains a joy when he managed to smash one into the top corner. A beautiful free kick, and Tivoli take the lead via their number 1 star, 1-0 to the host. That goal took the win out of Waterhouse sails, but they eventually shook it off and would end the half the better team as they desperately tried to come back into the match. They would go on and produce their best look at goal yet, but the ball went agonizingly wide of the upright. The half would end with Tivoli in the lead. Second half now, and Waterhouse would start the better in the opening moments, but again, all that hard work was almost undone by another Fuller free kick. From there, the game became a bit back and forth, with Waterhouse pushing more and more men forward, which in return, of course, will leave them vulnerable for the counter. Fuller thought he got away here on the break, but was taken down by what clearly looked like a shoulder to the back, but the referee thought otherwise. However, Waterhouse was still unable to find a breakthrough themselves until the 66th minute when they got a lucky break. A good move down the right hand side led to this coming together in the box, but it seems both Waterhouse and Tivoli players was expecting a referee whistle as they all froze for a minute before the ball eventually ended up at the feet of Colorado Murray, who did well to swivel and shoot that beat Clark but not the post. But in a massive stroke of luck, the rebound hit the unlucky Tivoli player and went into the back of the net. An own goal, and Waterhouse were finally back on level terms. But their joy would only last a few minutes as down the other end, a completely clumsy challenge in the box by what appeared to be Wilson led to the referee pointing to the spot. And it was always going to be one man to take it. Tivoli's number 10 took his time before calmly slotted it into the back of the net to give Tivoli a precious late lead, 2-1. Of course, from here, Waterhouse and their head coach Marcel Gale had no choice but to throw caution to the wind as both strikers Javier Bryan and Atafore Bygrave entered the game to try to salvage a point. But despite their best efforts, Firehouse would not find another one, and Tivoli would close out their first game back from the break with a massive win. So it was an intense game, but how was the game in terms of stats? Tivoli saw more of the ball with 55%. They also had 13 total shots compared to Firehouse 10. 5 shots were on target for Tivoli, while only 2 were on target for the visitors. Okay, we will begin with what was first. It was an inconsistent performance, which is a microcosm of their season so far. This time, it could be down to rust, or even taking too long to adjust to the slippery surface. But if they want this season to be any different from last year's one, they need to find more consistency. As for Tivoli, a typical resilient performance. They weren't at their sparkling best, but when you have a special player like Nicalia Fuller, you will find yourself winning more games despite not playing your best. Anyway, once again this one ended Tivoli Gardens 2, Waterhouse 1. From there, we turn back the clock to the night's opening game where the defending champs Cavalier were taking on league leaders Montego Bay United. First, the starting 11 for Cavalier, the Monsieur Fer was the man in goal, Forbes and Leng leads the defense, and youngster Chad James was given a start up front. As for Moby United, there is no Triminum, so Wellington and wing partners in defense. It was shocking to see informed winger Dwight Merrick on the bench, and Jamari Clark was given the keys to the attack. So, to be honest, I was unable to watch this match as for some reason, this match was not televised despite previously scheduled to do so. So, from the reports, it was stated that Cavalier had the first great chance in the match for an agent read shot, but his effort hit the post. Mobe would retaliate and brought Fer into making a comfortable save. And from here, Cavalier edged the run of play and things weren't going Mobe's way either. They were forced into making an early substitution in the 38th minute where Clark was replaced by Jordan Fletcher, and then things got from bad to worse 3 minutes later when Cavalier had a set piece, the delivery was played in and McCleary was on hand at the back post to pour a header through the hands of Burton and into the back of the net. 1-0 to the champs, and I must say, Burton should have done better there. Cavalier would take that lead into the halftime break. Second half now, and coach Xavier Gilbert will make another change, bringing on his talisman Dwight Merrick to try and get Mobe back into the match. But they would find himself 2-0 down by the 57th minute, as Chad James did well to find the back of the net. From here, Brian Brown would enter the game as well as Mobe went for broke, but that left gaps at the back, where Cavalier and Chad James took full advantage of. The young striker would go on and nab his brace in the 72nd minute to end this contest for good. So it wasn't the best return for the league leaders, but how were the game in terms of stats? Despite the defeat, Mobe saw more of the ball with 54%, but Cavalier had more total shots, 14 compared to Mobe's 9. 7 on target for Cavalier, while 3 were on target for Mobe, and they both were close in dangerous attacks. Okay, I will begin with Montego Bay United. Again, I didn't see the full match, so it's hard to judge their performance, but it seemed being rusty played some part. It's not an excuse, but again, to expect them to be at their best after the impact of the hurricane is not very realistic. As for Cavalier, with all the internal issues and distractions, they could not ask for a better return to JPL action. The squad is now razor thin, so the youngsters who are left behind will be under massive pressure to keep Cavalier in the top 4, so this was a perfect start. Anyway, once again, this one ended Cavalier 3, Montego Bay United 0. So with Montego Bay dropping points, second place Portmore United had a great opportunity to gain some ground. But first, they have to get past the Junglists, and here was Portmore's starting 11. Gawain Austin partner Stephen Young in the center defense, Shandy James comes into midfield, and Peter McGregor once again leads the line. As for the visitors, Joel Jones is the anchor in the back, Marlon Martin comes back into midfield, and there's no Fabian Reed, so young Giovanni Taylor is in charge of getting the goals. Well, it was a decent start to the game with both teams full of running, and it was Arnett that was settled quicker on the ball and held majority of possession in the early moments. And yet, they would cough up the lead as early as the 6th minute. Ronaldo Robinson placed a good in-swinger into the box from a set piece, and it was directed towards his own goal by Joel Jones. And just like that, a little bit against the run of play, Portmore leads at home. That goal settled the nerves of Portmore, and they were now the ones seeing majority of the ball as they probe and look for a second goal. In fact, their confidence was so high at this point, their back line was all the way up to the half line as they tried to set up shop in the Junglists half of the field, but it almost worked against them on display. But honestly, it was a real poor half of football after this. Both teams looked too sluggish in possession to mount any meaningful attempts at goal, and the half would end Portmore keeping their slim lead. Second half now, Portmore looked a little bit more promising, and they would even produce a decent effort at goal, but it was well saved by Bennett, and the player on the rebound was clearly offside. While at the other end, Arnett would produce a rare shot on target from this Joel Jones header as he was looking to make amends, but it was comfortably saved by Russell in goal. They would produce another shot on target some moments after with this spirited run, but Russell and his defense did enough to protect their slender lead. Coach Philip Williams got sense momentum was now shifting and brought on star striker Richie Kelson to try and get a goal back. And while they look a little more fluent in the attack, it would be Portmore to be the next to test a goalkeeper with this effort. In the end, Portmore locked up shop and kept the Junglers out fairly easily to secure a vital 3 points on their return to action. So it wasn't a pretty game to watch, but how was the game in terms of stats? Portmore saw more of the ball with 54%, and they ended up taking more total attempts with 5 to Arnett's 2. 2 on target for the hosts, and it was the same for the visitors. Portmore only had 32 dangerous attacks, while the Junglers only managed a sorry 16. Alright, let's begin with Portmore. Yeah, they look a shadow of the team that dropped 4 in Harbour and Montego. I could drum this up to Russ after the lengthy break, but I can't deny that performance reminded me of so many they had last season. As for Arnett Gardens, they need to find a suitable solution in January at centre forward because the attack always look lost when Fabian Reed is unable to play. This was not a good performance by any means, and they need to get it together to keep pace with the top 6. For now, this one ended Portmore United 1, Arnett Gardens 0. With that loss, Arnett stays in touching distance of the relegation threatened teams, and 2 of them did face each other at the compound. First, the starting 11 for Harbour, young player Reese joins the team at right wing back. Guard Stewart is once again in midfield, and Trayvon Reed and Rowan Brown once again leads the line. As for Police, Samuels is once again the main man in goal, Waterhouse captains from defense, and Elliston is the main striker up top. Now, when the game started, there was an immediate opportunity for the visitors after some sloppiness at the back by the hosts. Luckily for them, Elliston's shot was too straight in the end. After that, Harbour settled into possession and launched majority of their attacks down the Police left-hand side. And on one occasion, it paid dividends as Reach did well to get his low cross into the box that somehow evaded Reed at the doorsteps, but Police failed to clear the ball properly, and Rowan Brown was the lucky man to tuck away an easy goal, 1-0 to the host. It was a bad goal to give up for sure, but credit to Spanish Town, they reacted well and had numerous decent chances of their own, but they failed to take any of them. While Harbour was still probing at the other end looking for their second, and they would eventually get it in the 28th minute when Rashawn Oldfield played in a very free Brown at the top of the box, and the number 9 slots it past Samuels to get himself an early brace, 2-0 to the home team. That goal killed Police momentum and belief, but Harbor's next goal would outright bury them. Just look at this absolute rocket from Rashawn Oldfield. Wow, an instant goal of the season contender, and with that, Harbour now leads 3-0. After that, the Stars of the East tails were up and they continued to pressure the Police defense. Rowan Brown himself had numerous opportunities to grab himself a first half hat-trick. But the game's next banger goal would come from the boot of Trayvon Reed, who just like Tivoli's Fuller is a dead ball specialist. Bang! Another gorgeous goal in this match makes it 4, and things were looking ugly for the Police. Second half now, and major credit to Spanish Town, they started off the half as if the scoreboard still read 0-0. They had a newfound energy and spirit, and they pressed the Harbour team whenever they touched the ball. This led to numerous turnovers and numerous chances for the Police, but again, the finishing left a lot to be desired. They had to wait all the way to the 82nd minute to finally get a shot past Davis in goal, a good delivery from the set piece, and Richard Lane got to the ball first before Davis to peg one back for the visitors. And they didn't stop there, as a few minutes later, Captain Walters would be next to turn up at the back post from another set piece to squeeze his header in at the near post. All of a sudden, it was 4-2. And just when everyone at the stadium was thinking the impossible might occur, the one they called Mad Dog went ahead and did this. Rowan Brown will never, and I mean never, have an easier hat-trick goal, and with that, Police resistance was finally crushed. So it was a crazy game filled with many goals, but how was the game in terms of stats? No surprise, Harbour had more of the ball, but look at this, they ended even on total shots, which tells you Police had their moments. 7 on target for Harbour and 4 were on target for Spanish Town, and Police ended up with more dangerous attacks in the match. Alright, let's begin with the host here. It's clear new coach Vassal Reynolds is trying to implement a new way of playing, which the players are still getting used to. They are now playing with a 3-4-3 system that sees both wide centre backs having more responsibility in distributing the ball. I like how it looks, but with the second worst defensive record in the league, that second half was a cause for concern. As for the Police, it's the same thing every match, highly competitive, but the quality in both boxes let them down once again. But major kudos to them for that spirited second half, and they need to keep that going over 90 minutes. So once again, this one ended a crazy Harbour View 5, Police FC 2. No, that game was a total shootout, but our next game was the complete polar opposite. First, the starting 11 for Dunbeholden, there was no Odeem Pennycook, so Young Wall comes into defense. There was no Nicholas Nelson either, so Stephen Arnett will lead the line. And Fabian McCarthy was once again captain in the middle of the park. As for the starting 11 for Mount Pleasant, Caribbean Cup hero Tyreek McGee was given the start. Warner Brown got the nod up front over Edwards, and it was an all-Asian midfield as St. Fleur partners Clifford Thomas in midfield. Now, when the game started, things were a bit stop and go as the referee whistle was blown often. Mount Pleasant would be the first team to settle down on the ball, but Dunbeholden were disciplined in their defensive shape and were ready to counter when given the opportunity. The away team would eventually have the game's first threatening attempt at goal from a corner, but this header safely went over the bar. But Mount Pleasant were at this point the ones in control, and Dunbeholden were pinned back in their own half. This pattern continued for another 10 minutes as Mount Pleasant dominated possession, but this shot that went over the bar was the closest they came towards scoring. They would come even closer moments after when Warner Brown was played in by Bradford and took his shot well, but Peter Harrison was equal to the task to make the save. Harrison would be brought in to make another major save at his near post, this time to deny McGee from the free kick to keep the scores level. That would be the last major action heading into the halftime break. The second half began the same way the first ended, with Mount Pleasant once again dominating possession, but they didn't have much to show for it. However, after some good work by Shaquille Bradford and Warner Brown, they did manage to get the ball into the back of the net, but the offside flag came to the home team's rescue. Sensing the need for a goal, Coach Whitmore took out Bradford and St. Fleur for the speedy winger interval and attacking midfielder Lamar Walker to try and find a breakthrough. And the two would later combine to help produce this dangerous play for Mount Pleasant, but again, the Dunbeholden defense held firm. 0-0 it remained. Still seeking that first goal, Whitmore swapped out Warner Brown for Raheem Edwards, and he would be next to try his luck from distance, but Harrison was once again well positioned to make the save. But despite their continued dominance, Harrison and his backline would hold out and got the hard-fought point at the end. So it was practically a one-sided game, except on the scoreboard, but how was the game turned to stats? Well, no surprise, Mount Pleasant had more of the ball with 59%, and no surprise, they absolutely dominated total attempts with 12 to the host 2. 7 of those were on target for the visitors, while only 1 was on target for Dunbeholden. And clearly, Mount Pleasant led the way in dangerous attacks. Okay, let's begin with the Caribbean champs. I will give them credit. After such an emotional night this past Tuesday, they could have easily turned up here and basically phoned it in. Despite not scoring, they put in a real shift, and that was without some key players like Kimoni Bailey. But again, just like last year, they need to convert more of their chances. As for Dunbeholden, hate it or love it, it is now clear that Coach Gordon will not be too concerned about flash. Well, at least not at the expense of the final result. Dunbeholden offered absolutely nothing going forward, and it may be an issue in the future, but for now, it was mission accomplished and they got their point. Anyway, once again, this one ended Dunbeholden FC 0, Mount Pleasant 0. We now move on to our final game, and again, unfortunately, we had no TV coverage for this match between Racing United and Molynes United. I will share the little information I do have, beginning with the starting 11. Racing kept the Trinidad international Aaron Enel in goal. Markovich Brown, as per usual, leads the team from defense, and Nikai Ellis remains the main man in the attack. As for Molynes starting 11, St. Lucian Darren Denai was the man in goal. Sir Gina Frankson also leads his team from defense, and Marlon Pennycook got the nod up front over Nigerian centre forward Wisdom Rubani. Now, as I stated, I have no idea how the general flow of the game went, but Molynes would take the lead in the 23rd minute from a well-taken goal from Pennycook. Racing would later earn and dispatch a penalty in the 34th minute from Tajay Grant to draw themselves level, but Molynes were determined and regained the lead just 2 minutes later via Pennycook once again, who got his brace. But the back and forth would continue and Shavani Willis would peg Molynes back once more to have Racing level entering the halftime break. And they would come out strong in the second half to find the game winner as early as the 47th minute via another goal from Tajay Grant. I wish I could tell you how the rest of the match went after that, but we do know Molynes was unable to find a response and Racing would take home all 3 points. So it seemed it was a really entertaining match, but how was the game in terms of stats? Racing held more of the ball with 57% to Molynes 43%, but Molynes edged total attempts with 10 to Racing's 9. The Stallions had 7 of those attempts on target, while Molynes managed 6. Racing had 89 dangerous attacks compared to Molynes' 77. You know, you could look at this result in a vacuum and think to yourself, wow, Molynes really pushed Racing there, but this is very similar to how they played them in all 3 matches last season. But it's also a total representation of Molynes under the guidance of coach Jermaine Thomas these last 3 years. When the attack clicks, the defense seems to fail, and vice versa. When the defense does well, the attack struggles. They really should be higher up the table than 13th. As for Racing, coach Anthony Patrick did warn us that his new system of play will need time to be perfected, so he will happily take the 3 points this time around. Anyway, once again, this one ended Racing United 3, Molynes United 2. So that was match week 10, and it was an amazing return after 1 month break. But because of that break, we have no time to rest as match week 11 starts right away with these fixtures on screen. But anyway, that would do it all here on this match week 10 review show. Thank you all for watching, and please like, subscribe and share as we look to keep you all up to date on the JPL leading up to the final in May. Otherwise, for great JPL content, you're already at the right place, JPL fan. YouTube, big up yourself.